Hello, I'm Dean in North Carolina,
And I'm Emily in Los Angeles.
and you're listening to Hackaweek Coast to Coast, and this is episode 5, all about Maker Faire. We had a blast there.
We really did. It was such a fantastic time. This was
it
my
was fun.
first one, and I just cannot say enough good things about it.
And awesome to finally meet you in person.
Yeah, likewise. It was really cool.
Yeah, it was cool. It's kind of a buddies bonding weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good time. Oh man, there's so much to talk about on Maker Faire. I had a blast. I mean, Maker Faire for me is always, and a lot of people I'm sure, is a thing where the first time you go, it's like you find your tribe, and then every time you go back, you feel like you're coming home, sort of a thing. And that's what it was like, especially for the San Mateo one, because that's the very first one I ever went to. Then I was in the 2010 one, so 9 years later, I'm back again as a participant, not just a spectator. So that was fun, and I got to do a presentation, which was great, and talk about Hackaweek. I had a pretty good crowd. I don't know, what do you think it was? Maybe 60 people?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, not bad, especially since it was first thing in the morning on Sunday. As the day goes by, there's always more people going to show up, but it was cool because I had some people afterwards that came up and asked me some really specific questions about some of the thing I talked about. And one of them really struck me, where the lady was talking about the pressure that she felt she was under, and it was not fun anymore what she was doing.
Yeah.
And she kind of keyed on that part of my talk about when it doesn't get fun, that's when you need to back up a little bit and realize that you got to do it, because you enjoy it. It's not just all about pleasing your viewership. And that's nice, and it keeps the monetization rolling in. But she hadn't monetized anything. She was doing a thing where I didn't really quite understand it. She had something set up where she was doing a membership or something. But anyway,
Okay.
She said she felt way too much pressure and it just wasn't fun anymore. And she didn't know what she was going to do. I said, quit doing it. She said, well, what about all these people? I said, just, I don't know, tell them sorry.
Yeah.
If you're paid up with them, whatever, just, give it up. So anyway, it was kind of neat to give a talk and then have somebody actually talk about something I was touching on afterwards, and being able to offer a little advice from my experience anyway. But
Yeah, for sure. And this is a little bit of a tangent, but I don't know have you watched any of Cody's Lab on YouTube? Have you seen any of this stuff?
just a couple of things. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's not been posting many videos for the past few months, and he released a video, I think it was this morning, touching on the same issue. He had said a while back, if I don't post every week, then you'll know something's wrong. And so he did a little video today, kind of opening up about what's been going on with him. And same thing, he's felt a lot of pressure, and he's felt like a lot of stress from running a YouTube channel. And for him, it's a little different because it's his livelihood, right? He can't just not do it because that's what he lives off of. But between the YouTube algorithm, getting demonetized for some of his videos, because if he did a video, the video that I discovered him on was where he made black powder, starting with his own urine. He saved up his urine. He oxidized it in a natural process over a period of months so that he could get nitrates, and he made black powder out of it.
Wow.
Yeah, it's super cool. And then he put it in a cannon and shot a projectile. Fantastic video. But, he kept getting strikes on his channel for videos that YouTube deemed unsafe, because someone, if they were motivated enough, could save their own pee and after 6 months have gunpowder. So he kept getting strikes, community strikes, and he was not getting the same viewership and keeping up the pressure of doing the videos all the time. It sounded like it caused some issues with his relationship, so he ended up breaking up with his fiance. He was just having a really bad time, and he just wanted to tell everyone hey, this is why I've not been posting so much.
Yeah.
And it's hard. When you feel like you have to keep going and going and going, and sometimes you feel like you have to top what you've done before, and that's hard. I haven't been doing this that long, but I can totally see how that would be tough. And that was nice that you talked about that, because I think a lot of people who are out there, creators and makers, they feel that once they start having people pay attention to what they're doing, they don't want to let them down.
Right.
And but you have to remember you come first, and
Yep.
you have to put yourself first, because if you're not okay, you're not going to be able to make stuff anyway. So yeah.
No, it shouldn't be a burden. In other words, it should be, the creation and you sharing it should be a joy and, inspire people. And as soon as it gets to be where it feels like a burden, that's when it's time to back off and, take a break or something. And you can come back to it later. You can always come back. That's why I've never done the Patreon thing. I looked into that. You're now, as soon as you do that, you are now obligated to do something not only for YouTube, but a special video for those people now too. So now you doubled down, you just loaded yourself up even more. And I guess, sure, you can make some bank, but I don't know. I looked at that and I just went, no, I got too much going on to do that. It's enough of a challenge anymore just to get some YouTube videos out there. So
for sure.
Yep.
Well, anyhow, back to Maker Faire. I kind of distracted you there.
That's okay. Got to see Soppy live and in person and help with some repairs. That was fun.
Yeah. And for people out there who don't know who Soppy is, Soppy is my friend Roger's open source rover that he developed. I can't remember. We might have talked about it on a previous episode of the podcast, but
yeah, we did. I think in 3, maybe a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. So for some quick background, I'm a member of a weekly hacker group here in LA. And, one of our members works at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and some of the interns at JPL developed their own open source rover project. And the idea was that they wanted middle school students to be able to build these things as part of their robotics curriculum. And so all the plans are online and all the parts are easily sourced. And they asked us to beta build one of these just to see do their instructions make sense? How hard is this to do? Does it seem like something junior high students can handle? And we built one and it was a lot of fun. And that was the first project I worked on with the group. But when we were done, Roger wanted some more. He hadn't gotten his taste of rovers filled yet. And he also wanted to see if he could come up with something at a better price point. And so I think the open source rover cost, $2,000 in parts. And Roger got his rover, which is mostly 3D printed, down to around 500, and it runs off a Raspberry Pi. So yes, he took Soppy out for Soppy's first big conference and drove Soppy around all weekend. And yeah, Dean could tell a little bit about the repairs and everything that he was watching us do.
I thought it actually held up pretty good for as many, and like we were saying, you and I both, the odometer thing. I remember I mentioned that to him. She put an odometer on, and he said, "You have a mind just like this one over here." He pointed to you, says she had the same idea. And it would be cool just to be able to track how far it's gone in one session or whatever. But for as much as it was roaming around and turning its wheels back and forth all the time, just to have one servo fail and blow some fuses and a coupling that holds the servo to the actual wheel assembly fail. I think that was about it, unless there was some other ones that but that's the only 2 I helped with the repairs on.
Yeah. No, that was it. Though one of the other servos is starting to go bad as well. And so
it lost a little bit of its alignment at the end of the day. It had one wheel a bit.
Yeah, there's some kind of lifetime issue with those servos, and Roger and I are going to do a teardown and see if we can figure out what's going on with them, but we haven't gotten to that yet. So, but yeah,
Mad Scientist was cool. Yeah, Evil Mad Scientist was pretty cool. The Uncovering the Silicon, that presentation was awesome. Where they took they made a large scale model of an integrated circuit and how it's built and all the layers, and it was 3D printed pieces. And it was pretty cool because you could take it apart and look at it and actually understand just how an integrated circuit goes together in the layers from top to bottom. Instead of in a 3-dimensional space, it works top to bottom by building layers. And that was pretty neat. And then seeing Helen Lee was really cool because I'm a musician, so I was very curious about her work. It's too bad she didn't get an hour. She only had 20 minutes, and she was moving along in her thing she'd had 20 cups of Java. And I talked to her afterwards. I said, "That was great," and she said, "Really? I felt like I was just going way too fast. I didn't cover anything at all, and it sucked." And I said, "No, it's good. You did good in 25 minutes." She goes, "Yeah, I really wish I would have had more time," but she did a good job with that. And her stuff is really cool. It's all capacitive touch sculptures basically that can play music when you touch them. They're really neat. I want to mess around with some of that stuff that she was talking about.
Yeah. I really liked you saw her glove, right? She was wearing that glove.
Yeah, I want to get one of those.
Yeah. Well, I think she said that she has the plans for it online because Roger was talking to her about like how it works, and she said, well, it's all available. And so they were talking about like him developing a glove using the same technology, because it's just a glove. It's a glove with a BBC microbit like sewn into it.
Yeah.
And he was talking about making a glove for controlling Soppy, so he can make Soppy drive with his hand motions instead of using his phone. So I think she said the plans are online somewhere. I haven't looked yet, but if she said they're on there somewhere, they're on there probably. So
GitHub, maybe.
If you want to make one, I'm sure you can.
Yeah. It'd be kind of interesting to put it on your hand. You'd have to have like a override where you just disable everything. Cause I mean, you know, what if you scratch your head?
Yes.
So, Soppy goes crashing into something.
Right. So that was exactly what they talked about. And Roger and I were talking about it later, and like she had said like, well, you should just have the hand motion like this, like the stop hand motion. You know, you put your hand up like this means stop, like just put your hand up like this. And like if someone's wearing the glove and they panic, like when people panic, they usually just put their hands up anyway. Right. So like if you give someone the glove and then they freak out, then they're going to put their hands up, and then Soppy will stop. So
good idea.
Yeah.
So you have like a fail-safe gesture. That
right.
makes sense too, because, you know, up, and then you could just push it down for forward and tilt left and right, you know, for the steering.
Yeah. I told him he's going to need to build a second Soppy and then have a glove for each Soppy, and he can be like sort of like a Soppy like super villain. He can just kind of like throw his hands out there and make the Soppies drive at people.
That would be fun.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. Got to meet lots of people too, you know, that I've known online for years. Mike Stish, and I now know how to pronounce his name correctly.
Yeah.
And Caleb Crafts, that was good. And Jerry Ellsworth. And when we met, you know, I walked up to her, she gave me a big hug, gave her a hug, and we talked to each other like we'd already known each other for 5 years. It was the funniest thing, because we've communicated a lot over the years, and, you know, we've shared a lot here and there. And she says, we have met before, right? And I said, no, you know, because I'm sure she goes to all these conferences, she meets tons of people. And I said, no, we haven't. I said, no. I said, I've been known about you since way back in probably like 2006 or 7, when you were doing those videos called Fat Man and Circuit Girl. And she goes, wow, that was way back. And she goes, yeah, it's really weird. It's just I feel like I've already met you. Like I know you really well. I said, yeah, it's kind of the same for me. It was funny. Yeah. And we got to talk for like maybe 2.5 minutes, and somebody came up, you know, I was like, hey, Jerry, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, all right, time to move on. So good enough. But it was nice that I finally got to meet, you know, and let's see, there was a couple other things. Oh yeah. At the Maker Faire, there was one particular thing I did pick up and go home with. You can find him on Twitter. The handle is @WoolBuddy, and you bought one too. Do you have it there?
Yes.
Yes. Little fuzzy creatures made out of felt, and they come in a flower pot, and they're these goofy looking little plant creatures with eyeballs. I brought one home for my wife, Lisa. Emily bought one.
I did.
They were pretty neat. I was very taken by those things.
They were adorable. They're like little cactus monster things, and like they're grotesque, but they're really cute. And I cannot get enough of that kind of stuff. And I saw those, and I was like, oh my God, I have to buy one of these. And when I saw they were only $20, like that's a bargain. Like someone spent a lot of time making that thing, and it was only $20.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
I got one, and I have it on my desk at work now, so I can look at it all day. So.
I sent a picture of all of them that were on the table to my wife, Lisa, and I said, pick one. And she picked out 2 different ones. And one of the ones she picked was my favorite too. So I grabbed that one, stuffed it in the suitcase, and brought it home. That probably looked strange in the x-rays on TSA.
Probably.
Speaking of TSA.
Let's hear about your TSA adventures.
Yeah, that was on the way to Maker Faire. I was a little late getting started. I was about 15 or 20 minutes late leaving my house to drive to Raleigh to get to the airport. And, you know, then I had my cyborg thing that I built, which was on the side of my head and here in the front of my head. And it was made out of latex, you know, so of course, immediately they're like, oh my God, it's plastic explosives. Yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm just going to blatantly leave them right in the open and bring them on the plane. Not. So I put it in a bag. I had it labeled, you know, dear TSA agent, here's what this is. You know, it's theatrical prosthesis, blah, blah, blah. I'll be wearing it at Maker Faire, and this is where I'm going. And so immediately, you know, they pull it aside, and everybody's got very serious looks on their face. You got to step aside. Yeah, I figured that. And I'll gladly answer any questions you have. I was like being as cooperative as I could. So after it goes through X-ray twice, maybe 3 times, with at least 8 different TSA people looking at it, a bunch of them were looking at it, and they're pointing at stuff and they're asking questions. They come over and they ask me, what's this? What's that do? Then finally they get to the end of the line. They pull it out, still in the bag, and they ask me what it is, what's it do, where am I going? And, the usual drill that any kind of authoritarian thing will do, where they're trying to trip you up. So they're asking the questions rapid fire, and they ask them twice, but they'll ask them in a different way the next time around. See if you answer the same, and I'm just firing back all the questions. And I got an 8:15 flight, and it's like 7:55, and I'm still not through the line. And by about 8 o'clock, finally they're like, okay, you're good to go. So I go around to the other side of the glass. I'm packing my stuff up. And a TSA agent walks around the glass and goes, could you hold on just for 1 minute? There's one more person who needs to look at this.
No.
It's like, I got an 8:15 flight. Oh, they'll be right here. It won't take long. I'm really sorry for the delay. And filling in the blanks of what I figured out later, what this was this guy's like supervisor. He's in a white shirt. He's off in a room somewhere. He finally gets there like 10 friggin' minutes later. Sorry, I'm late. I was working on paperwork. It's just like, getting slightly annoyed at that point. And he looks at it. You mind if I take it out? Takes it out. And he's asking me questions with a demeanor that wasn't even about security. It was more of a guy curious about what my little thing was and how neat this was and what's it do and what's Maker Faire. How long you been going to that? Oh, that's cool. What do you do? YouTube? What kind of stuff do you do on YouTube? And I'm like, man, I got a flight to catch. You just want to have a conversation about stuff here. And I can appreciate that. And mind if I take a picture? Takes it out, takes a picture. I was like, all right, gotta go. I pack up. I literally walk down the steps, walk 20 feet to my gate and get there. And about 2 minutes before that, they had closed the door to the plane.
Oh, Jesus.
So that guy caused me to miss my flight. And looking back in hindsight, this dude that said, can you wait a minute, was, I think, kind of more or less just kind of like looking for brownie points. Oh yeah, my boss will like really appreciate this over. It'd be a good picture, for reference for other TSA agents. So really glad I could help you all be secure in the air with the pictures of my cyborg cam.
Right.
I got a flight 3 hours later, but yeah, I was a bit annoyed for about 20 minutes. I was actually quite furious, but I got over it.
Well, look at it this way. Next time someone wants to fly with a cyborg costume, they'll make it through the TSA without any trouble because you're the martyr for the cause.
Next time I will be mailing that sucker, because that's what I did on the way back. I dropped it at FedEx in San Mateo and said, yeah, shipping this back this time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that the day before. So, wow. So that was crazy.
Yeah.
We went to a couple of cool meetups too, which was fun.
We did.
3 actually, if you count the one Friday night at the Maker meetup at Maker Faire.
I actually went to 4 because I got there on Thursday, and Hackaday does a thing up there in San Francisco. We have one. We used to have one down here. It was just a Hackaday LA meetup, but they have their own thing up there. It's called HDDG, which is like the Hardware Didactic Galactic. I don't know. Hardware Developer Didactic Galactic, I think. And it's a very fancy name for just like the hangout. And sorry, my cat is doing something.
Oh, is that what that is?
Yeah. He's behind the TV, like attacking the cords for the TV. Anyhow, it's a very fancy name for like hang out and eat pizza and drink beer, and like they have guest speakers talk about different things. And so we went to that when we got up there on Thursday, and that was a really nice hangout. Pretty low key compared to the other ones. It wasn't at a bar. It was at Hackaday San Francisco headquarters, which is just a little office. Yeah, we had a.
Sorry,
see the cat
background knocking over the dinosaur because that's what cats do.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But yeah, the meetups were great. Like honestly, like you know what? Like Maker Faire was awesome. Like I had a really good time looking at all the booths. But I think that like the meetups that like sort of orbited Maker Faire were my favorite part of the whole weekend. because, you meet people at the fair and like you get to look at their booths and whatever, but then you go to the meetups and then like you can just kind of hang out and like talk, and you can talk about their stuff and they can talk about your stuff, and you can just sort of hang out and like just be friends, right? And like be friends in like a good setting, like hanging out at a bar and having a few beers with people who like do projects like you do projects. And I just had such a blast at those meetups.
Yeah, they were fun.
Yeah. I could not believe how many people were at the Saturday one, which was that was Tindy and Kickstarter, I think, that hosted that one.
Yeah,
Hackaday,
IO, Tindy, and Kickstarter.
Yeah, it was just packed in there, and like
it was totally like no room at all to move around at the end of the night.
Yeah, but like people are crammed into this bar and they have their projects with them, and like you're drinking, and then people are showing off like wild projects that like light up like a bunch of colorful lights, or like string launchers that shoot strings in these long loops that like shoot out. There was
that thing was cool.
Like levitator, like just so much cool stuff there, and just like hanging out with these people, and just like you said, it's like finding your tribe, and like you just get to be with these people that like get you and you get them, and just like hang out and do cool shit with each other. Like what a blast it was.
As soon as I walked into that one, this guy walks up to me and he's like, looks at the cyborg thing. He's, that's cool. And then he goes, look at this. And it's just immediate. I wasn't in there like 20 seconds. And this guy's like showing me his project and just going on and on and on about it. And I was like, okay, that's awesome, dude. Yeah, like, cool. And then I go another 10 feet, same thing again. It was just like one after another. That was awesome. That was a pretty cool meetup. And then Jerry's, the Bring a Hack thing, that was pretty neat.
Yeah, Bring a Hack was a ton of fun.
Yeah.
That was the first like time the whole weekend I got to bring any of my hacks. I had them the whole weekend, but like I didn't want to carry them around at Maker Faire all day. I didn't have a booth, and they weren't the kind of projects, they weren't like yours. They weren't wearable or anything.
Right.
And they're kind of fragile. And so I didn't take them to the fair at all. And I didn't take them to any of the like meetups until Sunday. But it was really fun to like take that stuff to the meetup and have people look at it, because I have those projects around, and like my family's seen them, my coworkers seen them, and my friends have seen them. And I took them to the mini Maker Faire in downtown LA, and it's all really cool. But like, those aren't hacker people. They're not maker people.
Right.
And just having people that are into making stuff, like be really into your projects, like that was just so empowering, right? It was just cool. Like people are just like into your shit, and you're like, wow, like I didn't think people would like this stuff as much as they do. And like people were crowding around to look at my selfie cube and getting photos of themselves in the selfie.
Awesome.
It was just so much fun.
It's that validation thing we've talked about before, and I got to say, I'll say it. You were friggin' holding court at that table for a little while. It was awesome. It was like, there was like, I don't know, 8 or 9 people around you, and it was all about Emily's stuff, man. Look at this person. Look at the shit she's doing. This is awesome.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was really happy to see that. That was great, because it was some pretty cool stuff. And the bag of bones, that was the best. She's like all of a sudden reaches in and pulls out this plastic, like quart size kitchen bag full of nicely cleaned bones. Yeah. And starts pulling them out. And I couldn't believe how people were so freaking curious about them and asking questions about them, and giving anatomy lessons about why the bones are shaped like they are. That was cool. That was great. God,
yeah, that's a unique response, because if anyone else sees just my bag of bones, there's always like a joke like, oh, are you a serial killer? Like, did you kill those? Like, no, I didn't kill them. No, I'm not a serial killer. People tend to like bones when they're in projects, but I think that's often because they don't realize that they're real, because usually when people say like, oh, that's really cool, like 3 questions later, they'll say, wait a second, is that 3D printed? And I'm like, no, that's real.
And then that begs the question.
Bones, they're like, oh, what? Those are real? Where'd you get those from? But at the meetup, people are just like, oh my God, that's cool. And they're just taking the bones and looking at them, and they're talking about them in like mechanical engineering terms. Like, I think Eric, who's known as Tube Time on Twitter, he was like, look at the fillets on this bone. These are just like,
right.
like, yeah, I mean, they are. They're biological fillets, right? But he's looking at it from like a mechanical engineering like perspective of like, how does this bone handle like stress and strain, which is
Right.
just a really cool perspective on things.
No, it all evolved that way from just lots of trial and error, right? And so
Yeah.
whatever worked survived, and what didn't failed and didn't get replicated.
Yeah.
So anyway, unless you're a creationist, and then that's not true.
Yes.
Well, that night kind of ended badly for me. I don't know what happened, but I started to get a little ill. I don't think it was the food at the place. Nobody else got sick. But I did get a glass of water from the bar, and who knows, maybe the glass was dirty, something, but I started to feel a little sick about, I guess it was about 8 o'clock. And so I said bye-bye to everybody, took off, got back to the hotel. And without going into tons of details, we basically got sick. I threw up a few times and was feeling absolutely horrible and just thinking, God, this sucks. I got to catch a 6 a.m. flight. And then I woke up at 1:30 and there's nothing left in my stomach, but I'm still feeling nauseated. And I go in the bathroom and I threw up blood, which freaked me out. So, of course, I'm kind of groggy and I'm like, what do I do here? How bad is this when this happens? And did a quick Google and everything was just saying, go see a doctor now. Don't mess with this. And I thought, yeah, this is internal bleeding. It's not like a cut on your hand. You can just put pressure on and stick a Band-Aid on. So I called 911, ended up down in San Mateo Medical Center, and they are awesome. They did such a good job. I was admitted at 1:30. They did some quick blood work, did a chest x-ray, determined that what it was probably a ruptured blood vessel in my esophagus from throwing up violently. And I had already irritated it from talking all weekend. Yeah. And gave me some anti-nausea meds and a prescription for more. And I was out of there by 3:30. Took an Uber back to the hotel, hustled around, found some more meds at an all-night pharmacy, made my flight at 6 a.m. And the flight home sucked. I felt like shit the whole day. It was terrible. I finally got back home and crashed out for about 14 hours and took about a day to recover, but I'm feeling pretty good now. But that was no fun. I wish that I'd known throwing up blood is a scary thing, kind of a freak out moment.
Yeah, that is scary.
Yeah, so the bookends to the weekend were kind of bad, but the overall weekend was friggin' awesome. Can't wait till next year. I hope there is a next year. There's talk that
I hope there is. I mean, I hope there is. I was talking to Caleb Kraft, and he was talking about the finances, and it's like, man, I hope they figure it out. Like, if there's never another one again, that'll suck, but I'm glad I got to go to this one because this is my first one, and at least I know what it was all about if there's never another one.
Yeah.
And if there is never another one, there's many of them in other parts of the country, and maybe people in other places will like pick up the ball and run with it. I know that New York Maker Faire is a pretty big one, and they have some other big ones in other parts of the country. We have a very small one here in LA. It's still a mini Maker Faire, but there's so many people out there who are into making stuff, and there's a lot of people with a lot of passion. And I have to believe that even if something happens and they don't bring back Bay Area Maker Faire, that the other people who run the other Maker Fairs will pick up the slack.
Yeah, there'll be something else to take its place. I think Hackster magazine or Hackspace magazine is doing a thing they call Hack Fest. Pretty sure I saw something. I'll have to look into that some more, but I think they're starting to do a thing like that. So who knows where that'll lead to. And, if it's not there, somebody else will come along and figure out a way to make it happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, there's already some things out there. We have SuperCon here in LA, which is a lot of fun. It's a very different event. It's not so much a show and tell like Maker Faire is. It's more like a 3-day hack fest. Yeah. Which is super fun in its own right. And I'm looking forward to it big time for this coming November. That was my first thing I ever like went to. That was like a big gathering of people that make stuff, and it was like intoxicatingly cool to go and be around all those people. And I'm looking forward to more of these kind of things. We were actually I was talking to the folks from Crash Space. Crash Space is one of our maker spaces here in LA. They're out on the west side, and so I don't get to go out there to see them often because, ever. I've never been out there to see them. Because getting out there on a Tuesday night for their meetups is kind of impossible because it's like a 2-hour drive in traffic. but I was talking to Barb Noren, who I forget if I'm not going to say what her title is with Crash Space because I'll get it wrong, but she's involved with running Crash Space, and she and I were talking about doing some kind of like Crash Con, like a smaller thing, but here in LA, and just get like all the people from around LA together for a weekend, like a long weekend. And I think that'd be super fun. So we're going to see what we can do, I guess.
Yeah. No, it's if the people are there, you can pull it off. There's nothing around here. I mean, up in Raleigh, 60 miles away, there's stuff going on. Durham has got a hacker space, but here where I live in Pinehurst, everybody golfs. So they get together and talk about balls. That's about it. So I guess my fail of the week was missing my flight. Have you got one?
Do I have a fail of the week? No, I mean, we kind of already covered it. It's not exactly my fail, but, Roger and I were running Soppy around, and Soppy is Roger's robot, but Soppy broke, and we had to fix Soppy.
Yeah.
What happened was that Roger was driving Soppy around, and one of Soppy's wheels, Soppy has 6 wheels, just like Curiosity rover does, and one of the wheels stopped responding, like it didn't steer anymore. And so he was like, all right, I need to go limp this thing into some safe place where I can work on it. And on his way, the fuse blew, like the main fuse blew. And so Soppy was completely dead. So we had to carry Soppy in. And he texted me and was like, hey, Soppy's dead. Like, can you come help me out? And so I went over there and we like started looking at it. And he was like, well, this one wheel went bad. And so we kind of just worked from there. I was like, all right, well, let's unplug all the servos because Soppy has 6 servos. 6? No. Let me think for a second. 10 servos. Soppy has 10 servos. 4 for steering and 6 for driving. And I said, let's unplug all of them. And then we'll just plug them in one by one and like work our way back up to the one that seemed like it was the bad one. And so we did that and we just like worked our way through it. And like, yep, like as soon as we plugged in the one that was like suspected, blew the fuse again. But Roger's like very well prepared. Roger is very organized, unlike me. If Soppy were my robot and I were up there, I would have been like, oh shit, I left the servos back in the hotel, or like I forgot them back at home, or I didn't even plan on bringing an extra servo. But Roger had like a little spare parts kit that Soppy carried with him. And he had spare servo, he had spare mounting brackets, he had spare like linkage couplers, he had all that stuff. So we just popped that servo out of there. We put the new one in. He had to do some stuff like giving it a new address because these are like smart servos and they have an address on the network that's like run by the Raspberry Pi. So we had to give it a new address and then we put it in and it worked. And like we just put all the mechanicals back together and Soppy was like off and working again. So
cool.
I don't know. I guess that was kind of a fail and a success. And I don't think that was a fail that like Roger could have predicted. Like the servos are just starting to go bad after getting a lot of miles on them, and there's no way to know when that's going to happen. But I was really happy we got Soppy running again because Roger got like a ton of positive feedback on that rover. So many people came up to him. So many people wrote down the information to build their own. So I hope he gets more out of them. I think it was really cool that someone who saw his open source project built one, like built their own, and that person was at Maker Faire. And so like Roger got to see someone else's version of his own rover, and that was really cool for him. But yeah, other than that, I don't think I have a fail. I haven't really had a chance to work on anything since I've gotten back. I'm just kind of trying to catch up on life. Right. I haven't even cleaned up my laundry or anything from getting back. Like my clothes are still all over the floor. So maybe that's my fail, is that I've just left my house a huge mess.
It's been the same thing here, especially with the business, catching up at the business. And yesterday I was all foggy headed, so it was kind of crazy. But I got caught up finally today. All the papers and estimates and invoices and everything are up to date. And finally got back to work late in the day on an awesome 1960 Jaguar Type D race car replica. It was a replica of a 1957 car. Yeah, and it's got this big ass double overhead cam 6-cylinder engine with 3 2-barrel carburetors on it. It's just badass. And it came in running like crap. And within about an hour's time of doing a little work on the carburetors, I was done with it. I put a little video of it on Twitter today and revved it up a couple times. It's running great. So I love working on those cars. Life hacks. My little life hack this week was I needed glasses to wear to be able to see at sometimes. I can get by without my glasses, but if I want detail at a distance, I want to read sign, I need my glasses. And I had this cyborg cam on. So I brought an extra older pair of glasses with me. And I was trying to figure out a way to get the screw out of one of the bows. And I was even at the hotel room tearing apart like razor blades, like the cheapy plastic razor blades, thinking I could use one of the blades, but they're way too thin. And then I realized that if I kept this up with my fingers, I was going to slice the hell out of myself, and that wasn't going to do anybody any good. So I figured out, okay, I'll wait. Somebody down there is going to have, it's a bajillion hacker people. Somebody's going to have a small screwdriver. And first I went to DigiKey. They didn't have one. They sent me over to iFixit. And of course they had one. They had entire kits. So I borrowed one of their little screwdrivers and took the bow off. And then I was able to have a pair of glasses I could put on throughout the day with the right bow missing. And I could actually put them on my face and be able to navigate around and read some signage when I needed to. So that was my quick little life hack, was finding someone with a screwdriver.
I have a life hack. Hang on. I left it on the table. I'll go grab it. All right, so my life hack was a travel-related life hack because I use a safety razor because these things are great. And for people that don't know what a safety razor is, they're these old school style razors.
My dad used one of those.
People say, like, why do they call it a safety razor? Like, it's so much more dangerous, right? They're called safety razors because this was the first razor they invented that wasn't a straight razor. So this is not as safe as like using a Gillette like Mach 3 or whatever the heck they have now. But it was a lot safer than shaving with a giant blade, right? And they're nice because they cut really cleanly. Like they give a really good shave. But if you're like a cheap ass like me, the best part is that the blades are super, super cheap. So you can get like a big pack. I think I bought a pack of like 100 blades on Amazon like 4 years ago, and I haven't even gone through all of them yet. And the blades are like 7 cents a piece when you do the math. The downside is that the blade is exposed, and it's going to be hard to see on the video here, but the blade is exposed on both sides here. And I've taken this thing traveling with me before, and even though the blade is like very minimally exposed, it's very sharp. And one time I was traveling and it sliced into my tube of toothpaste, and like my toothpaste like was just going everywhere in my bag. So that was just an awful mess.
Nice mess.
Yeah. And so I had been traveling with this thing by putting a piece of like Scotch tape over the top of it because that protects it enough, or rather protects everything else from it enough. But that's kind of a pain in the butt because you peel the tape off and then it doesn't want to stick on again. And so you have to like find extra tape like partway through the trip. So that kind of sucked. And other people have said like, well, why don't you just take the blade out when you travel? And it's like, well, because then every time I use it, then I have to just throw the blade away and get a new blade. So this time around, I designed and 3D printed myself a little cover for this thing because I had looked at covers, and they make covers for razor blades, but they're like very specific to the like brand of razor blade. So this is a Merkur, and like if you get one from, I forget what the other brand is. There's another brand that I think is an American brand. Like that one's not going to fit this razor blade, and like they also look kind of cheap. They look kind of like crummy, and like they cost more than I would expect for like a piece of plastic. And I'm like, well, I can make a piece of plastic. I have a 3D printer. So I printed out a little cover, and I did this in Onshape, which is like online CAD modeling software. And I printed it in PLA, and it's really nice. Like it's designed to fit over the head of the razor. And so you have like, it's like a clamshell. You have the two halves, and then they just stick together and they hold together through friction. And so like now I have a cover and it stays on. And so awesome. I took this up there with me, and it's great. And I'm pretty happy with it. I put it up on Thingiverse. If anyone wants to print their own, it's on Thingiverse. I think I called it safety razor cover or something, or maybe we can stick the link in the video description if anyone's really interested, or look on my Twitter. It's on there too.
Yeah.
So that's my life hack. 3D printed safety razor cover, and it works surprisingly well.
That's a good one. Isn't that great when you can just like, I still marvel at being able to problem solve with a 3D printer. You just jump on your little CAD program of choice and whip up something and throw it on the printer and bam, done. You've got this proprietary thing that didn't exist 3 hours ago.
Right.
Solve the problem.
Like, I mean, this is the future. You know, we have our own little factories in our houses.
Right.
Like when my grandfather was a machinist and an engineer back in like the 50s and 60s, you know, you have to hire a draftsman, you have to hire someone to model all this stuff, and they'd sit there at a drafting table and they draft it all, and they like take it over to the machining department. You have to have a machinist set everything up on the mill or on the shaper, and they have to shape it all and mill it all. And if you wanted a plastic thing, then you have to have like a tool and die maker. But now I can just like do this like with cloud-based software and like spend an hour maybe like modeling it up, and then send it to my slicer and send it to my printer. And then like an hour after that, I have an object in my hand that like came out of my own head 2 hours ago.
Isn't that the best?
That's magic, right?
It
like,
is. It's totally like, magic.
Yeah.
I always marvel at it, like that it was just some, you know, I kind of get right down just to the physiology and chemistry of it. It's like, you know, when, like you said, the hours before, all it was just some neural synaptic pathways going bzz, bzz, bzz. And now it's this real thing in 3D space, you know. It was a thought in your head, just like everything around us is like that. It was once just somebody's idea that didn't exist, and now there it is, you know. And if you look around you in the world, it's like it's a marvelous thing what the human mind can come up with and engineer and build.
Yeah, definitely. And now we've just compressed the time scale to so much smaller.
Oh yeah, everything's really quick now.
Yeah, as an amateur, if I had wanted to make something like this, hell, even 10 years ago, I would have had to like go out to my garage and get some wood and cut some wood on my table saw and glue it together and it would have been a big blocky thing.
It takes a lot more time. Yeah,
that would have been hours in the garage.
Right.
And then I would have made one and maybe it wouldn't have fit right, and I'd have to make another one. Like I might have spent a whole day on that. And I had to do more than one iteration of this, but by like the third one, it was printing fine and it worked perfectly. And I didn't have to sit there. Like, what did I spend? An hour? Like, that's so cool. You can just manufacture stuff at home on your own in an hour. And that's just amazing. And I don't think people realize how cool that is. I mean, people still are kind of like, oh, 3D printers, those are cool. But like, it's mind blowing if you really stop and think. Like, if you step back and like look at it with like a perspective of like, we are making things in our own homes, like to suit our needs exactly. Like that is just so amazing. And I don't think 3D printers get enough credit for what they like, the opportunities they open up for people.
Hell no. Most people just look at them as something to print little trinkets, you know?
Right.
You go to Thingiverse and print some trinket, you know, but if you just learn some really simple drawing program, you know, or a CAD program, and there's a lot of them out there, that's where you really can start to empower yourself with the tool you have at hand, and then you can really start building things.
Yeah.
Speaking of, I'll segue into projects.
Yes. It's the tremolo.
The mechanical tremolo, iteration 1. That it's got some issues. I got to work through another iteration, but the idea with this is it's a sliding potentiometer that can move up and down and then change the volume of an audio signal, i.e. a guitar. So then you get
Can you scoot it up a little bit? I can't see it. There you go.
So I got the cone is printed. That was easy to do. All it was just make a cone and offset it. And then it's mounted up on a Roomba motor. This motor was the one that poked out of the bottom of the Roomba, and it had a little brush that just slung around and kind of slung dirt into the way of where it gets picked up.
I have one of those.
You need to move it back and forth to change the amplitude, basically. So I printed a little sector gear and a gear. That's with a plug-in in SketchUp. It's a really cool gear plug-in. It's dirt simple to learn. And you can, like, when you open it up and you make a straight gear, Then you open it up again, and if you want to make a round gear, it's automatically got the same amount of teeth with the same pitch, and it will match right up to the one you made before.
That's awesome.
So that's how I move that back and forth. But the issue that needs to be worked out is it tends to stall.
Move it up a little bit again. Yeah, there you go.
It tends to stall a little bit easily because what it's doing is it's trying to push on. That was the residual voltage burning. It's trying to push on a tiny little wire, and so when it rolls around to this point, it wants to catch on it and it binds up. So the solution that I know that just dawned on me, just like a camshaft in a car, this piston that moves up and down needs to be bigger, needs to be a larger diameter, so there's more of a footprint on the cam at any given time.
What about putting a little roller on the end of that rod?
They could do that too, but it's got to be bigger. It's definitely got to be a little bit bigger just so it can follow better. So this is like, iteration one, and I'll just start all over. I'll take this and I'll just expand it out this way, so I got more room to put a bigger rod and stuff in it. And this will be coming up as a Hackaweek video pretty soon. I might do this like a part 1, part 2, because this is pretty much part 1. I got this far, and so I'll explain what I've still got to do. And then part 2 will be the next version where I solve the problem and get it to work. And it's going to be this nifty little device that's just this weird wiggly round thing on the desk, and it'll act like a tremolo.
I love that.
Cool.
When you get everything all done, I'm going to 3D print my own, because I'd love to play around with those. Yeah,
I'll definitely put this on Thingiverse, because there's musician hacker types that'll play with it. And I've also got an alarm clock that's failing on me. It's a really cool little clock. It's tiny. It's got a nice red light that doesn't keep me awake at night. Anything that's blue or green or whatever, or VFD displays, they keep me awake. I don't know. It's just the color of the light. But red is okay. But the buttons on the top of it are getting really, really sketchy, glitchy. So I told Lisa this morning, I said, yeah, this thing, you know what? I'm gonna put it in a different box. I'm gonna Velasco it. You're now a verb.
Awesome.
So that's what I'm gonna call it. It was like,
I've always wanted to be a verb.
So I'm gonna put it in a box, put some other switches on it, maybe do something clear where you can see all of its guts. Maybe because it's a cool little clock.
Cool. Is it like how old would you say the clock is?
It's like maybe 10, 15 years old. It's just a little LCD or LED display, big red numbers.
Okay.
Some simple little buttons on the top with a 9-volt battery backup.
So I don't know if you've opened it up yet or not, but I've worked on a number of those clocks, and I've found that the buttons do tend to fail. And if you've already worked on these, go ahead and stop me. But usually, since these things are built down to a price, they skip out on putting proper buttons in them, right? Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times what they do is they have really cheap contacts that are literally just pressing onto the traces of the PCB. Yeah. And sometimes I found that they just literally a piece of Scotch tape is holding the little clicky button thing on top of the traces. And sometimes the tape, the adhesive has just come loose and the things are slid elsewhere, right?
I have seen those in other devices. Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes the PC board, because it's exposed copper, generally it's just oxidized and it doesn't work as well. But the nice thing about that is that if you do decide to rehouse it, you have really big pads right there where that button's supposed to press on. You have really big traces that aren't meant for soldering, but it's a PC board, so you can solder. So you could easily solder on yourself a pair of wires for each of those and give a brand new button, a proper button that's not going to wear out. So that'll be fun. I look forward to seeing that.
Yeah, I might come up with, do some cool button. I don't know, go shopping around for just a momentary contact button, do something neat, or make a button maybe.
Sure. I think I was looking, I have a bunch of, I shouldn't say a bunch because I've used most of them. I have a bunch of those arcade buttons, right? And they do make some really cool ones. I think Adafruit is selling a triangular one now that's lit up from inside. And the regular arcade buttons are cheap enough, but I think I've seen on Thingiverse printable arcade buttons that you can put a little micro switch into. And so depending on how much room you have, I love arcade buttons because they're just so good and clicky.
Yeah, they have a nice feel to them.
Yeah. So depending on what you decide to do, just maybe those will work for you. I don't know.
There's an idea. I could make it look like an old game console.
Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah, just like a little tiny miniature game console and put the
Yeah.
display where the CRT would be.
Yeah, like a tiny arcade cabinet, right?
On the front. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
There we go. We just invented something. Yeah, that's it. It's the arcade clock, the arcade alarm.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
I think this is fun because I think that we were talking about something else on an episode and like we were brainstorming, and that's where the mechanical tremolo came from, right? Like it was a different
you
episode.
mentioned that. Yeah, like it would be neat to just, mechanically move a sliding potentiometer in some way.
Yeah.
And I didn't ever think of a slider. I was trying to think of doing it with just a rotating potentiometer, but it's a lot easier with a slider.
Yeah.
So, yep.
Well, those are some good projects. I have some projects. I actually got a package delivered this evening, and I haven't opened it yet, so I'm opening it now. I got
Christmas.
Yeah, I got what did I get?
Like, this is our first unboxing or unbagging on
right.
Hackaweek Coast to Coast.
I ordered a pack of these. I don't know. It's a cheap pack of perf boards off of Amazon.
I bought some of those. I think the same pack, just a big ass pack of a bunch of assorted ones.
Yeah. Roger had a bunch of these, and we've used them for the VFD project, and that's to specify that's vacuum fluorescent display, not the other VFD that I've been playing with. These are pretty great. They're cheap, but like buyer beware. We did have one, and I know I mentioned it previously. There was an internal short between I don't know what you call them, the perfs, the
pads.
The vias, the pads. There was an internal short between two of them that like we didn't know was there, that was causing our project to misbehave.
Like inside the board where you couldn't see it?
Inside the board where you couldn't see it. And that's why it took us like 2 weeks to figure out what was going on.
How the hell would that happen? That's wild.
I mean, because what are they? They're like some kind of epoxy resin board stuff, right?
Right.
And then when they add the metal, I guess there must have been a void. I didn't autopsy the board because it's in our project, but my theory is that there must have been a void in the board, and that the metal that they use to put into the vias, like when they do wave soldering or whatever it is, however it is they apply the silver shit on this, like it must have gotten into that void and shorted two pads to each other. And so the last time I used one of Roger's, I checked like pad by pad, all the ones I was going to use, I checked them with the multimeter, all of their neighbors, to make sure before I soldered anything to it that none of them were shorted to any of the other ones. So yeah, if you buy these cheap on Amazon and like you want to save yourself a headache down the road, like spend 5 minutes and check all the pads. I didn't find any, and we've used them on multiple projects, so it's not common. But like when it does happen, like you're going to waste a bunch of time not knowing where the issue is. So just spend like 5 minutes and just check all your pads first. Make sure that none are shorted to each other, because if you don't, you're going to be kicking yourself down the road.
Because I bought some to make a couple little miniature op-amp audio mixers. So
cool.
Yeah, that would definitely drive me nuts if one of those was happening after I built it. So I will be checking all of mine now that you mentioned that.
Yeah, definitely. And it's a hard fix once if you have like a chip soldered to the board and you have 16 pins, like you have to get your solder sucker out and like desolder it. And if you already soldered all the other components on, like, man, you might as well just start over again.
Pain in the ass, right?
Yeah, and so when we had that one that was bad, I ended up just clipping the offending leg off the chip because we didn't need that leg, and I just clipped it off. So it's disconnected from the chip, and that was easier than desoldering everything.
Yep, simple.
But I got these because I'm getting ready to finish up that vacuum fluorescent display project now that we're done with Maker Faire and done with all the preparations for Maker Faire. I want to get going on that thing again. And for people that have been following me on Twitter, you'll have seen this thing. I haven't put any YouTube videos up about it, but I'm going to do a video for the final build. In any case, Roger and I have been working on this thing. I tore apart a VCR timer tuner, and I pulled the VFD out of it. And Roger and I decided we wanted to see if we could run this thing, because they were always sort of mysterious and like black magic to me. I didn't know how they worked. I thought they needed very high voltage, and it turns out you need like 25 to 30 volts, which is super manageable. We built a board to power it. I reused a bunch of the components from the original timer tuner to build the power supply. It's ready to go for the most part. it takes input from a Raspberry Pi, and it displays things. And I had an idea for this thing. I was asking on Twitter what Roger and I should do with it. And everyone, because people are not as creative as they should be, was like, make a clock out of it. And I'm like, no, like there's a million VFD clocks. I'm not making a clock. And everyone was like, make a clock, make a clock, make a clock. And I was like, the hell with all of you. Fine, I'll make a clock, but I'm going to make a death clock. And so the death clock, my idea for this thing is it displays time because that's what it was originally supposed to do. Like for those of you who are around in the 80s and up until probably 2000, you'll remember VCRs. They always had a little clock. And if you were like most people, it was always blinking 12 because no one ever remembered how to set their VCR right. So it was always blinking 12. So that's the little screen that I have, right? And since it was a timer tuner, it also has the days of the week on there. So you have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And so this is going to be really easy. I shouldn't say that. Roger does the code. Though he's going to teach me how to do more code because I don't know Python really. I know just little bits and pieces, but I want to learn. It seems easy to me, and it probably is, but like Roger would be a better expert. In any case, it's going to be really simple. I'm going to build this thing into a little box that looks roughly like an alarm clock, and it's going to be blinking 12 until you touch the touch point on top of it, and that's what I have here. This is an Adafruit capacitive touch sensor. I didn't buy it from Adafruit, and I feel kind of bad about that. So, but also it's probably counterfeit because it came from Amazon. But it's a capacitive touch sensor for a Raspberry Pi. So the idea is like it's going to be blinking, and there will be some kind of indicator to touch this little thing on the top of it. When you touch it, it's just going to run some code on the Pi, and then it'll tell you the day of the week and the time that you're going to die. And this is
I don't want to know.
And it's going to be meaningless. Like, it's not going to be based on anything. Like, you're just going to touch it, and it's going to register someone touched it, and then it'll spit out like a random day and a random time. Right. But that's the idea is like.
So if you don't like the result, you just touch it again.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So that's, what do you call it? Is that the Heisenberg uncertainty principle that like when you observe a system that you change the system? That might be the one that you tell both the speed and the velocity of a particle at the same time. Yeah. Anyhow, there's a physics principle that says like as soon as you observe a system, you change the system. Exactly. So I'll just use that as my excuse. Like if it's like, hey, I just touched it and it gave me a different time. I'm like, oh, well, now that you knew what time you were going to die, it changed everything for you. So now you have a new time to die.
That's good.
Yeah. So that's what I'm going to do with these boards and with this. And I'm going to see if I can get some work done on that this week, but I'm going to be busy. We're doing something for my mom's birthday on Friday. I have Layer 1 coming up this weekend, which for people in LA, Layer 1 is like a local like InfoSec, information security and like security conference. And my friend Jasmine at Hackaday in Tindy gave me a ticket. So I'm going to go to that on Saturday, I think. And then on Sunday, I'm going to DragCon. This is RuPaul's DragCon. I'm going to go to that on Sunday. And then Monday, there's a Memorial Day barbecue at my parents' house that I have to go to. And then my hacker group is having their own like potluck and barbecue. So my weekend is kind of already accounted for. But I'm going to try to get some work done on this thing this weekend anyway.
I got like a car show I'm going to go to and press the flash marketing for my shop, which will be good.
Cool.
And a lot of the cars there I've worked on, so that'll be good. So your mom's birthday is what, this Saturday?
Well, my mom's birthday was actually like 3 weeks ago, but it was the same 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, but it was the same. It gets really complicated this time of the year because my parents' anniversary and Mother's Day and my mom's birthday are all around like within like 3 weeks of each other. And so it's like they all stack up. And it was also my parents. So it was my parents' 40th wedding anniversary. And we were doing a big party for them. And so we just said like, all right, like we can't do all of this all at the same time. So we just, as a family, decided to like delay my mom's birthday until later. And my sister was camping 2 weeks ago and I was at Maker Faire last weekend. And so this is the next available weekend where everyone can get together. So
you just kind of do it all in one shebang. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to get together on Friday and go out to dinner. And is it bad that I've forgotten how old my mom is? Like I kind of started losing track after they turned 55. Like
Yeah.
I think 64, but I feel bad. Like I can't remember how old my mom is.
I did the same thing when they started getting older like that. So I guess then happy 40th anniversary, happy birthday, and what was the third one?
Mother's Day.
And happy Mother's Day. So here you go.
Yeah.
I have a bunch of these laying around on my desk. I've been waiting to use. All right. Well, is that a wrap, I think, for this week?
I think that's a wrap.
About an hour.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning into our Maker Faire special episode. We were actually going to try to do an episode from up there at Maker Faire.
Didn't work.
But,
weather didn't cooperate.
What's that?
The weather didn't cooperate very well.
It was like raining.
Yeah.
It was windy, and it was noisy as hell inside of the conference halls, and there was like no way we could record anything inside of them.
Yeah,
and
it wasn't going to happen.
Dean wanted to go look for some Mexican food, and so we went on a trek for Mexican food, and we were going to try to record an episode from the Mexican restaurant, but that was its own little mini fiasco, in that the Mexican restaurant happened to be inside of a mall food court, and that was not at all suitable for recording an episode. So we did not get it done, but yes.
So here we are.
We're catching up now.
We did it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you can find our podcast in all the usual places. It's all over the place now. It's being, what's the word I'm looking for? Aggregated, I think it is.
Disseminated.
Yeah. And it's all over. So I put it on Anchor, and then Anchor puts it out to all the usual podcast places. And we're doing this one on Zoom this week. So any feedback on the video, audio, sound is appreciated. You can find me on Twitter at Hackaweek.
And you can find me on Twitter at MLE_online, and on YouTube at Emily's Electric Oddities.
Of course, I've got Hackaweek TV on YouTube. So check us out. We do some fun stuff. Communicate with us.
We do.
One more
real
thing.
Quick. Yes, I wanted to give a shout out. We had a fan of the podcast that came and talked to us up at Maker Faire. Remember?
Vaguely. There were so many people.
Right. I am super sorry because I forgot his name. And if you're out there listening, I am so sorry I forgot your name. Like, it's nothing personal. I had many beers when you introduced yourself, and I had met like 30 people already that night. But like, I so appreciated you coming up and talking to us. And I'm pretty sure I saw you at Dean's talk on Sunday. So if you're out there, comment on this video and remind us who you are, because like, you're awesome. And I'm like really grateful that you enjoy listening to us.
Yeah, that was the guy at he was at the last meetup we were at, or
yes.
He was at the first one.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I remember him because he watched my motorcycle videos too.
Yeah. So whoever you are super cool. And I'm like really glad we got to meet you. And I am sorry I forgot your name. I'm really bad with names. I'm sorry.
Same here. So, okay. Well, that's it for this week. So till next time.
Keep on hacking.
Bye.
Bye.